Hello, I'm EnterElysium, and we're going to have a little bit of a different thing today. Today is World Suicide Prevention Day, so I actually want to kind of talk about that for a little while, and then we'll be playing Depression Quest, because, I think it ties in quite nicely with the subject. This isn't going to be one of my normal kind of derpy, happy-go-lucky videos, mainly because, I think this is something that, we really could do with talking about, and is very important. Especially to some of you and to me and, actually to my demographic. So if you're looking for a happy-go-lucky video on my channel, then, there's plenty of other ones you could watch. Possibly not this one. But I actually do, I would appreciate if you at least listen to the intro, because this is something that's actually kind of really important. Now, most people who watch my channel apparently are about, I think something like 18 to 25 guys. And after that, I think it's something like, 12 to 18 guys. And then I think it's something like 25 to 34 or something. So the first three demographics of my channel are guys below below 34, and very few people actually know this, but the leading cause of death of guys at the age of 34 or below is suicide in the UK, and I believe it's the same in the US. And, well, no one really knows about that. We often, particularly, suicide does happen to women as well, but 75% of all suicides are men. And, you might look at the media and be like, well, in TV shows and so on, or whatever, it's always the women who commit suicide, which is completely false. It's guys, most of all, who commit suicides. 3 out of 4 cases, it's guys committing suicide, not women. So I think this is possibly, the perfect demographic to talk about this to. My channel apparently is the demographic for suicide, or at least the same demographic. So I think maybe having this discussion with you is possibly the right thing to do. So I'd actually like to kind of talk about it for a little while, if you don't mind. The issue I find with suicide is people don't want to talk about it because people want to blame the victim, or blame the person who died, blame the person who killed themselves. And it's not that simple. The person doesn't choose to kill themselves out of their own free will. Mental health illnesses tend to drive people to suicide, and it is an illness for a reason. It may be all in your head in terms of, it's a mental health illness. Obviously, the actual pharmacological reactions and stuff, depression and so on, or whatever, are all in your head, but so is a brain tumor, and no one's going to say that you can just wish that away, like a lot of people will do about mental health. Mental health is a big thing, and I do feel that a lot of people don't take it anywhere near as seriously as they should, and that might not be from their own fault. Often it's people don't understand quite the impact of it. If we talked about how much money apparently is lost from mental health illnesses. If you look at the UK, I think we're estimated to be losing £100 billion a year from missed labour days, and just the general costs associated with mental health illnesses. That's a lot of money, and even just turning it into monetary issues, it just belies the actual damage it does to people's lives. It's something that I find really troubling, because it's just not taken anywhere seriously, or talked about anywhere near as seriously as it should. Because obviously it's a very awkward topic, because yes, it is a bit screwed up that it's the person who commits the act, who kills themselves, is also the victim, and also the person, taking responsibility and doing the action of choosing to end their own life. But at some point you have to accept that it's not their fault. And it does make it hard to talk about, and it's something that, honestly, it is awkward to talk about, for me to talk about. I'm still trying to figure out how to talk to you about it. And maybe the best way is just to, talk about how, for everyone below the age of 34 as a guy, it's the leading cause of death. It's in the top 5 for, everyone below 35. I think that's including women. And it's in the top 10 globally, I believe, for causes of death. So you can hardly shrug it off and say that it doesn't matter. And if we talk about the other causes of death in top 10, you've got stuff like heart disease at number 1, particularly in the Western world. A large factor in heart disease is just old age. Eventually, especially with, high saturated fat diets, etc., or whatever it is these days in our diet, that, eventually things do catch up to us. whereas suicide is basically the antithesis of that. It is young age groups particularly who are being, killed off by it, which is a little bit more troubling because it's people's lives that are definitely cut short when they had, we're talking, under 34, of course, being the biggest age group for guys. What, you get an extra 50 years if you're at the top of the age group, on average. So, I think it is, honestly, something that we desperately need to talk about as a community. Not only just, us on this channel, but I believe not just on the internet, but as a society, as human beings, as, citizens of the world. I think it needs to be talked to, because we can talk about heart disease all you want. You can go down to someone and talk about heart disease, but try starting a conversation about suicide at the dinner table. I bet the vast majority of you wouldn't, or would have some really difficult time trying that one. And I think that's where the problem begins, because especially with something like mental health illness, where talking about it can really help, and the fact that we just can't is doing a lot of harm. With something like, obviously heart disease, talking about it really doesn't help a lot. I think that suicide is something that really, I don't think anyone takes it anywhere near as seriously as we really need to. And even just talking about, just in the cost of the money it costs society, the statistics of how high it is up in the charts for cause of death, it still misses a large part of what it is to be human, obviously. Because we're talking about stats. Stats kind of miss out the sheer damage it can do to a person and people around you. Oh wow, this is a really difficult video to do. See, talking about suicide can be really, really hard. Even just me talking to a camera. Right. So, Depression Quest is a game about, trying to live with depression. I've actually been following this since it was in development, because I thought it would actually be a pretty good way of, talking about it, and it's something I would have liked to talk about on my channel for quite a while. But of course, now it's out, and now we've got this World Suicide Prevention Day. It kind of a fortuitous culmination of the two, I guess. Now, I won't be talking about Depression Quest in the context of the recent stuff that's been going on. I honestly think that's not relevant to this. But I will say that if anyone actually has severe depression or even suicidal thoughts, I would advise you not to watch this video. And it's rare that I advise someone not to watch my video, because of course, that's my living. But in the case of this video, yeah, really, it's probably not a good idea. I've played a little bit into this game, and it hits very close to home. It's really uncomfortably accurate, really uncomfortably, about its depiction of mental illness, particularly, of course, depression. So if you are at all suffering from severe depression or suicidal thoughts, don't watch this, and go check out some of the links in the description for places where you can, go talk to someone, or seek help, or even just talk if you can talk to your GP or whoever your primary care provider is. I would thoroughly recommend that, and I would advise actually anyone watching this video who thinks or has a mental health problem to do that. Or even if you can't talk to someone like that, just talk anonymously through to someone like the Samaritans or whatever, or any other sort of listening organization. I myself have actually I've done a bit of volunteering in the past for a charity related to this sort of stuff, so I'm going to try and talk about it as we go through in a bit of the context of that. As I said, I would definitely advise anyone who has sort of any standing issues with mental health illness, who feels that they might be uncomfortable, to maybe even turn off now. So let's just switch to game. I will have my head in the small corner. I will obviously not be monetizing this video. Money is not an issue on this video, of course. This video is about the message more than anything else, which is also why I have a face cam. I normally don't do face cam on games because I believe it's the game that's most important, despite the fact that obviously YouTubers are personalities foremost. But in this case, I think it is important for me to be able to get the message across to you. The message of this video is more important by far than the game. So, as I said before, if you're looking for happy-go-lucky, me, normally, different video. So, yeah, let's start off. Begin. By the way, just the quick joke before we go. It doesn't have an FOV slider. It's definitely not a game. Alright, also, I can't get out this menu by right-clicking around it, which I was trying to. So let's begin, right. So it's an early Monday morning. We are a mid-20s human being. Our significant other is named Alex, who we are fond of. We've been seeing each other exclusively for the last few months, and the rest of the social circle consists of mostly of friends and acquaintances, some of whom you met at your day job, which is a little boring, but it pays the rent, which is, a start. You'd like to be doing more of your life, as would your parents, but you're still in the process of figuring out what that means and, how to go about it. We're also dealing with motivational issues that sometimes make dealing with these things difficult. You feel like this is probably your fault, and on bad days you can feel inwardly angry and down on yourself for being lazy, but you're not quite sure how you can break out of it, or how other people deal with these feelings and seem so very functional. This, of course, is screaming to me. It's sort of the beginnings of depression, particularly the beginnings of a spiral of depression. You see things like lazy and blaming yourself, and how people can break out of it and feeling that somehow you're not capable, you're not their equal. You're feeling worse enough of yourself because you can't do things, which of course makes you feel more depressed, which of course makes you have more lethargy, less ability to get out, less ability to be productive, which of course makes you feel even worse about yourself, and you get this spiral. So I think this game is going to be about really avoiding that spiral. So you spend a lot of nights fixated on thinking about this, but never seem to do anything about it other than lose sleep. Again, another thing about depression is you tend to spend a lot of time in bed, but not get much sleep, if that makes a lot of sense. And even if you do sleep, you sleep a very crappy night's sleep. You don't tend to actually get that proper REM or whatever. You just tend to doze, I guess is the term. Which is obviously something that I've heard as a classical complaint of people who know people with depression, being like, oh, they sleep all the time and then complain they're tired. It doesn't work that way. So let's just go next. It's an unseasonably warm Wednesday evening. Now, I won't be reading all the text, mainly because there is a lot of text, and I really don't want to be just a screen reader. I'm not Harv. I can't, have this amazing voice which you want to listen to forever, but I'm going to do my best to make this as interesting in summary, and also, talk about the issues involved. So we've spent the last few hours at work, but unfortunately we've been moving at half speed. We're so dead that our boss tells us that we can go home early. So basically we were having a pretty naff time of it at work, and we've gone home early as a result. So we're on a walk home, and we are having a bit of time to ourselves because our significant other will be at class until late. So we can catch up on that project that we've been working on. Okay. So as soon as you think about the work that waits you back home, you can feel the panic creeping in from the back of your brain unbidden. This would be anxiety. So it's likely that we in the game really have some sort of mixed anxiety and depression. Panic creeping in the back of your brain unbidden. All you can think about is how incredibly far behind you are, and the amount of work seems nothing less than insurmountable. Again, sort of a mixed panic and depression is, I think, the most common mental health problem. I think it's, 1 in 4 people will have a mental health problem during the next year, which is, crazy stats. So obviously the person we are playing is not a far out from the real world. By the time we arrive home and change out our comfortable work clothes, the stress is weighing down on you, and of course that panic is building up as we get closer and closer to doing the task that we're kind of forcing ourselves to have to confront. Welling down you like a wet woolen blanket. Your computer seems to be staring at you. You want to sit down and work, but the mere thought of trying to work sends your stress levels flying. More than anything, you simply feel exhausted, and you want to just hide in your bed. What do you do? Now, this is the thing about Depression Quest. And basically, you get these options, and one of them, or more sometimes, maybe not all of them, and maybe none of them will be blanked out, and it's because of our level of depression, I guess, if we term it like that. Basically, we are too depressed and panicky, so our stress is just too high that we cannot order some food, grab a drink, and hunker down for a night of work. We can choose to reluctantly sit down at your desk and try and make yourself do something, turn on the TV, or crawl into bed. So turn on the TV, telling yourself you just need a quick half hour to unwind from work. Now, by the way, I won't be playing this game optimally by any means. I will maybe play it a bit more, how maybe I would in this circumstance. So we'll turn on the TV and just have a quick half hour to unwind from work, and then we'll have a go and we'll get this project done. So just half an hour of TV, you tell yourself as you sink into the couch. You check the clock and see that over 20 minutes have already passed since you sat down. As your self-imposed time limit creeps ever nearer, you become more and more anxious. So basically our anxiety is again building up. We probably shouldn't have put it off. This is allowing us to have more and more time for anxiety to build up, and of course by not, getting out of that, we're just allowing it to spiral. You stand up and walk to the fridge, telling yourself, I'll just make a quick sandwich and get to work after that. Can't be productive on an empty stomach, right? As you eat, you pace around your apartment. Heading past your bedroom in the process, you stop at the doorway as if physically unable to cross the threshold. Familiar waves of exhaustion start racking you and you feel simultaneously tired and panicked. You close the door and head back to the couch. It's still early yet, you tell yourself. And you just start flipping channels. Feeling once encroached and shielded by being quite literally swallowed up by your couch. At the second hour draws nearer, sure enough you find yourself getting anxious and jittery. You repeat the fridge-paced couch processor a couple of times before looking at the clock and realizing that several hours have passed, and not surprisingly, you've managed to get no work done. So I'm sure that a lot of people could actually empathize with this, being able to, say, oh, I'll just do half an hour more of this and then I'll do some work. But of course, this is being a very typical thing for, most people have done. In this circumstance, of course, it can be a lot more dangerous because, the panic helps build up over that time, and it really means eventually you just cannot face doing it. So we end up crawling into bed, acutely aware that we have got nothing done. Our significant other, Alex, calls us to talk on the way home from class, and you simply say you had a rough work day and you're trying to rest before your shift tomorrow. She says she understands and wishes you a good night, though you can't help but notice she sounds slightly disappointed. Ironically, the stress of potentially upsetting your partner compounds with the stress of not having gotten anything done this evening, the stress of having to go into work tomorrow. The buzz of anxiety in your brain melts together, and you basically feel really, really bad. You feel too anxious to fall asleep for several hours. So basically, what did we get up tonight? We sat down, we had a lot of food from the fridge, I'm assuming junk food or whatever, since we didn't actually cook anything. We got no work done. We got too anxious to go to sleep immediately, so we don't get much sleep. And our significant other feels a bit disappointed with us, which of course makes us feel bad about ourselves. The stress of potentially upsetting your partner compounds with the stress of not having gotten anything done. And that is a big issue with this sort of thing, that you get blaming yourself or driving others away in these sort of relationships because you're afraid that you're not good enough for them or you're letting them down. And of course, the more they try to do to assuage you of that fact, the more that you're like, well, they're going out of their way to help me, and honestly, they could do better. So that's another big problem with this. As you can see, that there's a lot of spirals involved here, very hard to get out of. So we've got this depression spiral that we talked about. We've got an anxiety spiral, just sort of putting stuff off to be able to deal with it later, and then the anxiety ramps up. And now we have a sort of a spiral involving our partner. So as you can see, it's very hard to get out of these spirals once you've really started, got traction on them. You are very depressed, you spend a large amount of time sleeping, hating yourself, and have very little energy or motivation. We're not seeing a therapist, and you're not currently taking any medication. Interestingly enough, medication is by far the preferred method for GPs to recommend for their patients. Part of this is because it's cheap. I think it's about 30% of people who go to see their GP talk about mental health issues when they see their GP, yet I think it's only 9.4% of all prescriptions are for mental health related illnesses. So obviously there is a large gap there, and GPs are mostly 60% of the time, I think it is, or is it 80% of the time? I can't remember. It's a large number. Prescribing as the first course of action, whereas something like talking therapy has a much higher help ratio. Talking therapy is 80% of the time people say that it really helps them, whereas that's really not as available, mainly because it costs too much for the NHS. So, It's a mild Friday afternoon. Alex calls you from her class telling you you're going to go to a really awesome birthday party tonight at her apartment, but the one of her roommates is throwing. You've hung around with this roommate a few times with Alex, and you get along well enough, but you aren't particularly close. So basically, we've been invited to a party by our I think it's our girlfriend. I assume Alex is a girl, I'm a boy. Let's just assume that. And we've been invited to go to this roommate of our girlfriend's party. We don't have anything to do this. You don't have to work in the morning. Okay, so we can go and we can drink. You have nothing else to do tonight as well. So, but we are feeling run down, and we've been fatigued most of the time lately. You mentioned that you are feeling ill because you're not sure how to explain these feelings to someone else, and you say that you aren't sure and you might not be able to make it because we've been feeling ill. Okay, so basically, because we can't really talk to our girlfriend about our depression, and that we feel that by telling her she'd worry unduly about us or whatever, we're kind of telling her that we're ill instead, which of course isn't great. There's a second of silence on the phone. You can swear you hear the sound of your partner's face fall. So now she feels down, and now we feel down about her feeling down. There we go. There's that lovely cycle again. You see another spiral. She tries to convince you anyway. You haven't seen her this week, and she sounds pretty insistent that you come over. She even drops a few suggestively worded hints that you can stay over with them tonight after the party. Shake off your funk and go have a good time with your girlfriend. Unfortunately, it's greyed out. We can go, or we can say we can't make it. I think we'll agree to go. We can actually make ourselves get out of the house and go. We won't, have an amazing time or whatever, because, we can't shake off our funk, which of course is a prerequisite for having an amazing time. But we can definitely agree to go. And I think, that is very important. Being able to make sure you push yourself to your limits is very important. It can be incredibly hard, and of course it can, occasionally you can relapse and stuff. If you have, a bad time or you have a bad experience, then you can end up blaming that, pushing yourself. And you can just retreat back to your safe cocoon. In this case, your safe cocoon being not feeling well and can't make it. But I think it's important that you agree to go, to just make sure you can get out of the house and you can talk to people. It sounds really simple advice, but it's not that obvious when you're actually going through this stuff, as a lot of people here have probably experienced or had experience with, from second or third hand, some really severe mental illnesses. So let's agree to go. You agree to go even though you are not really feeling social. It's important to Alex. Yes, it's of course important to Alex. And, she has offered that we can stay over. And you really don't see her. Seeing her does make you feel better sometimes. And you hope that this is the case tonight, even though it means dealing with all the usual social anxiety. So yeah, we have a social anxiety. So definitely a mixed social anxiety and depression going on there. The time to leave rolls around and you grab your overnight bag. So there we go. The time to leave rolls around and we grab our overnight bag. I don't think we have any problems leaving. Alex's apartment is a short walk away. And there are already people hanging out on the porch. You feel your chest tighten as you approach the building and try to steal your nerves. So it's a good thing that we didn't have any problems leaving. We managed to, grab our stuff at the time, so we didn't end up going late because we were putting off because of anxiety. That's something that you can find happens, so it's nice that doesn't happen in that case. And, Alex's apartment is a short walkway, so I'm glad we don't have any problems getting over there. We do, however, have a bit of a problem on the doorstep. We can see a lot of people, and suddenly we can feel the anxiety come back. So you quickly find your partner chatting with the birthday girl, and Alex immediately lights up when she sees you. I'm so happy you came. I wasn't sure if you were going to make it. So there we go. We now feel happy, at least maybe a little bit, that she's happy, and she feels happy that we came. So that's really good. A young man taps her on the shoulder, and she turns back to you to apologize and to let you know that you're going to have to do something for the party. They have to do something for the party. Alex hands you a beer and plants a kiss on your cheek. I don't like beer. Oh, this is a real problem for going to deal with whatever came up. As you look around, you don't see anyone else you recognize. So, we could enthusiastically socialize. Unfortunately, that's grayed out. So, because, well, we really aren't feeling that way. We've got too much social anxiety to really cope with that. So we can awkwardly stand in the same spot, unsure what else to do. Put your bag in Alex's room and avoid the crowd in there for a while. But I've got the feeling if we do that, we might just end up staying there all night, because we'll just end up with that rising panic level. So to avoid the spiral, I think we'll go with 2. Cling to the back wall, sip your beer, and wait for your girlfriend to return. 4 is a good option as well. And 5, proceed to drink in earnest, hoping to make you less uncomfortable. Now, I'm really worried about 5, because 5 does sound like it could be the intro to becoming reliant on alcohol. Of course, alcohol is a great way of getting yourself talkative, but not possibly the best way of dealing with something like anxiety because you become very dependent on it. So we're not going to even touch 5 with a barge pole in this circumstance. 4, cling to the back wall, sip your beer, and wait for your girlfriend to return. 2, awkward stand in the same spot, unsure of what else to do. I think we're going to go with 2, just because I think that means sort of retreating from where people are. I think we currently are where people are. There isn't, a very clear distinction between 2 and 4, but I think we're going to go with 2. We sit there, we don't know what else to do. Everyone at the party is sectioned into smaller groups. We don't really know anyone else at this birthday party. The birthday girl turns to you and thanks you for coming, and you chat with her a little bit until she's approached by some friends and introduces you to them. Okay, so we're introducing to people by the birthday girl. That's really nice of her. That is actually particularly helpful that someone's noticed that we're standing alone, and she's made sure to introduce us to people. Which can be the biggest problem with having a social anxiety like that is being able to talk to people to begin with. Once you get into a conversation, maybe it gets a bit easier. So we do have very little in common with them, but they all seem to have known each other for a very long time. However, they're still really friendly, albeit a little drunk. Maybe that helps a bit on our point of view, that they won't be judging us too much, and ask you about your life, and they do their best to include us. That's really nice of them. You actually start to relax a little, but feel slightly excluded when you're the only one who misses an inside joke about someone's professor. I think that went far better than it could have done. I think this is possibly the best outcome from this situation. You proceed to make small talk with the group until your girlfriend returns. That's a good thing. We managed to make some small talk. We may have missed a few jokes or whatever, but I think that's just part of the course. We don't need to blame ourselves about that. Of course, I don't know if we're accepting that in character that we missed a few jokes, and it's fine. We might be still a bit, anxious about that. At the end of the night, you're feeling, as you're falling asleep with Alex, she is a she, thanks you for coming. Oh, obviously, girlfriend. Thanks you for coming. Half drunk, she confesses that she thought you were going to flake out, and was pleasantly surprised that you managed to come over. She says it lovingly, but you're not quite sure how to take that statement. Okay, so here we go. Now, she is, of course, half drunk at this time and says it as she's falling asleep. So, of course, she doesn't really mean it like that, but this is also another thing. It's very hard to choose your words correctly when talking to someone with mental health issues without, having any room where it could be taken wrongly. Of course, people do interpret things differently. It's a way of natural language. And the issue with something like mental health, and especially something with depression or anxiety, is someone can take such a small statement and that can prey on them for a long time afterwards. So a small slip like that, basically, she thought you were going to flake out, which implies that, she thinks of us as a flake, can prey on us. So I'm not sure how that's going to affect us for a while to come. So, we're still very depressed, so let's go next. It's a little afternoon on a muggy Saturday. Your mother has come for a surprise visit. She's invited herself over, in fact. She talks and walks around, but we get the feeling we're being inspected. Taken somewhat aback, she asks you what's going on lately. You tell her you're not sure what she means. She repeats the question, saying that you haven't seemed like yourself lately. She gestures to your dirty dishes piled in the sink. Okay, that one sinks a little bit closer home. And notice that, in fact, you haven't called or visited in a while. Your reticence only speaks to spur her on more. If you're having problems with work with Alex, she's barraging us with questions about, what's going on? Is everything okay? Is there problems with your girlfriend? We're becoming increasingly uncomfortable. We want to explain how you've been feeling, but the truth is that you're not really sure yourself. Nothing horrific has happened at work. So we haven't come to terms with our own depression yet. You're just feeling drained that you haven't been, you have not been all really here lately. Wish you could tell your mother these things, but she hasn't been approached about negative emotions in the past. She's the kind of person who holds the opinion that the solution to any problem is just simply to try hard and maintain a positive attitude. So this is also, possibly a little bit more typical of the older generation. We have got maybe a bit of a better dialogue about mental health issues now than we have before, but it's not great. But it's something that maybe people can actually relate to. That she's unlikely to be understanding and would feel the energy drain out of you when you imagine what would happen if you managed to blurt out everything you're feeling. What do you do? Right, so we can't let her know what you've been feeling down lately and that you appreciate her concern, so we can't phrase it eloquently. So even we can try and be honest, and it'll probably all blurt out, and, she might really harm us with some of her, well, you need to pick yourself back up, which obviously just doesn't work that way. It really doesn't help. So we can change the subject, tell her that everything's fine and thank her for asking. We can change the subject, tell her that everything's fine and thank her for asking, or change the subject. So I'm not going to do 2. Like, it might be the best course of action. Obviously, 1 is the best course of action, but 2 maybe. But I'm going to go 3 just because in this circumstance, it feels a bit more natural. It maybe isn't the most, obvious thing to choose. Like, maybe 2 is, but I can imagine if we do 2, she could, in fact, just tell us to, pick ourselves up, which really wouldn't be very good. I'm hoping that we can really rely on our girlfriend here as our emotional crutch. As much as, obviously, if we were a real person, emotional crutch really wouldn't work because we just end up blaming ourselves more. And that's the feeling that we've been getting so far, is that by, doing things wrong when we're around Alex, we start to blame ourselves very much. So let's tell her everything is fine, and thanks for asking. So, again, I use the term emotional crutch. That is because people with mental health issues think of themselves as, a baggage, and then they, think of people, they think they're using them as emotional crutches, and it's unfair, when often it really isn't true. It's something that you have to accept when you've got a mental illness, that, people will be there for you, and not to try and push them away because you feel that, you're being unfairly, needing on them. And I know it's easy to say, and, we've all been guilty of it at some point or other, but, it's one of these things. It's another one of the spirals, just pushing people away because they're trying to help. Okay, Mom, really? Thanks for worrying about me. Your mum looks across from the room with furrowed brow, and she doesn't seem convinced. She was about to say something and then decides not to. Well, as long as you're okay, honey, her voice trails. As your mother returns to what amounts to small talk, you realise that part of the conversation's happened a lot more recently. Someone will express concern for you, or simply... So basically, we're getting the familiar feeling that people are expressing concern for us, and we're saying, no, it's okay. Don't worry, nothing's going on, I've been feeling down. So basically dismissing things and not talking about them openly. Again, an issue of mental health illness. Now, part of the reason that, I said previously that men are much more likely to commit suicide. Now, if we look at the statistics for who seeks treatment, it is by far and away women who seek treatment more than men. Possibly this is because in the media, of course, women are portrayed as being the people who have the mental health issues and men don't. Maybe it means that women are more accepting of it, and women will accept treatment. And of course, with treatment comes, less mental health issues. Of course, treatment isn't brilliant. It's not 100% guaranteed, especially mental health. It's still not perfectly understood, but it does help. And by actually having women seeking treatment and men really not, we have an issue where, men, because we have this, it's sexism, really. Sexism. It's men have a sexist view of themselves, that we have to be self-reliant and always be strong and never show any weakness. And by showing a weakness such as mental health, it goes contrary to that. So by not showing any issues or seeking treatment for them, conversely, we are pushing ourselves to breaking point as guys in these circumstances, and, people end up committing suicide. When, far and away, we, as men, could have seen the warning signs coming. And as a particular demographic that I'm in, and by far and away my YouTube demographic is in, we really should be seeking treatment for this sort of stuff. Of course, this is not just men aged this age to that age. It applies to women as well, and it does apply to everyone else outside that age. But apparently something like 90% of my demographic is this target age group that I was talking about earlier, which just seems a little bit too much of a crossover to really pass up talking about. Sometimes when you insist you're okay to those who ask, you have to wonder if you're trying to convince them or yourself. So we're still having problems coming to grips with our own mental health issues. It's a lazy Sunday morning. Now, I will just tell you, this is as far as I've got. I've only played up to here so far by myself. I basically stopped playing because it was just a little bit uncomfortable, and I decided that I was, maybe best to just play the rest of it on cam, just so I can actually, you can get my reaction properly. Yeah, I've played this page, and then after this, I don't think I've played any further. So it's a lazy Sunday morning. You are idly clicking around online as your phone rings. Sam, a co-worker of yours you're friendly with, asks how you are, and he gets very quickly to the conversation. How do you feel about cats? Mine had kittens a few weeks ago, and I'm having an awfully hard time finding a home for them, home for one of the litter. You don't have any pets, right? So basically he's saying, do we want a kitten? Which is definitely something I would recommend. It takes you a moment to process the new information, and you're caught off guard as he begins to earnestly try to tell you tried to sell you on the idea of taking the last kitten off his hands. It's not something we'd really considered before, and he seems fairly insistent. She's a real sweetheart. She loves people. She's got all her shots, everything taken care of. I can bring her over for your place tonight if you're interested. You look around your apartment and try to picture a cat as you continue to tell yourself how cute she is. Oh, he continues to tell us how cute she is. You tell him that this is all kind of sudden, that you don't really have anything for the kitten to set up here, and he says, oh, I'll bring basically everything. I don't want to have to put her in a shelter. You can't help but feel that you're being guilt-tripped, but you decide to give it some serious consideration. It does get awfully lonely around your apartment, and it might feel less empty with a cat around. What do? So take the cat, knowing full well that we would take great care of it. We can't do that because we don't know we're going to take great care of it. We are, fairly depressed. Decline, even though you're not totally capable of taking care of it. You're not much of a cat person. We can't do that one either because, that's a fairly rational decision, well thought out. We're not in a state to make that decision. And also, we're not totally capable of taking care of it. So become a cat owner. We could use companionship. Decline, you're not in a good enough place to be taking on more responsibility right now. Or decline, you don't like cats. Now, obviously, we like cats. You don't want to take on any more responsibility right now. Or, yeah, we could use companionship. Now, I am going to let my own bias get in the way of this one, and as someone who actually, has a little bit of experience with this one, I would thoroughly recommend, if you're considering it, then, get a kitty. So I'm slightly biased in this one, and I will say that it is incredibly helpful, and it's relaxing, and it's really nice to have a kitten around. So I'm actually going to let her loose. She actually wants to have a bit of a run now, so... Thank you very much for Socks for helping me with this very important video. You've been incredibly cute. There you go. Are you ready to go? Okay. So I'm going to become a cat owner. For me, there is no other choice on this one. But obviously, if you have severe mental illness and so on, you're we don't think we'd be able to take on more responsibility right now is, it's something that is a possibility because you can be like, right, I actually want to take the mature option. I'm not going to do something I'm not sure about. Problem is, if you don't take anything on you're not sure about, you do end up still in the spiral where you can't really get out of it because you don't take any of those risks. So it is a risk, but unfortunately, of course, it is a risk that affects the kitten. And, you can say it's incredibly unfair of you taking on this kitten because, well, if everything goes tits up, you could end up not taking care of it, and that is perfectly logical and decent point of view. So I can actually I can fully understand that one, but we're gonna go with the kitten. I want a picture of Socks there instead. You accept the offer of the kitten and hang up shortly after. Not sure what to expect. Even rolls around. You hear a knock at the door, startling you out of reading Wikipedia entirely too hard. You take possession of a small, terrified black and white kitten in the carrier, along with everything you need to start taking care of her. You take her into your bedroom, close the door, and open the door to the carrier excitedly. She cowers in the back of it, and you back off. Feeling slightly defeated, you remember what you researched on introducing kitten to a new home, and leave her alone to go mess about in your leave her alone to go mess about on your computer. Okay, possibly that doesn't apply to the kitten. I thought that applied to the kitten for the moment. I didn't think the kitten could work out how to use Wikipedia quite yet. That happens when she's a little bit older. So hopefully checking over your shoulder every so often to see if she's come out yet. She hides inside her carrier periodically, making sorrowful cat howls. Actually, that's something that doesn't ever happen very often with kittens. Kittens don't really get the ability to make sound normally until they're a little bit older. Long enough to start worrying about she already doesn't like you. But by the time you go to bed, she's curled up at the foot of it, eyeing you nervously before falling asleep. Over the next few days, you gain her trust and she begins to affectionately follow you around, sleeping on you and hopping up onto you and sit down when you're doing some work. We're still very depressed, hating ourselves and have very little motivation, but at least we have a kitten now. So yeah, now this is entirely new to me. Entirely new. And it helps. I think it helps a little bit that I'm on camera. Maybe it helps me, deal with the uncomfortableness of playing this. It's Friday afternoon and quitting time is just around the corner. A bright, clear day. Generally, it seems nice. It's been a taxing week. Just before the end of your shift, you get a call from Alex. It seems that a group of your mutual friends are heading to a nearby pub for dinner and drinks to celebrate the end of the week. And want to know if you'd like to come along. You tentatively tell her that you're emotionally exhausted from a work week, and a social outing like that would just take too much out of your day. You encourage her to go and have a good time since you know it'll be a while since she'll she's gone out with friends, but you feel futile since you know that she isn't going to go without you. So then again, we have another returning to this girlfriend spiral. In that, if we don't go, the girlfriend won't go, and we're going to blame ourselves for not going. It'll push us further away from the girlfriend, and we'll push ourselves away from the girlfriend so that she could go. And yeah, you get the idea. A couple hours later, you find the two of yourselves in a familiar position on the couch watching comedy shows on Netflix. A box of pizza open on the coffee table in front of you. As you look across the couch at her, you start to feel anxious. You feel bad about effectively forcing the two of you to stay in tonight. Again, while you're always appreciative of your partner's efforts to take your feelings into account and make sure you're socially comfortable, you sincerely worry that you're holding her back from enjoying a more fulfilling relationship. There we go. That's exactly what I was expecting to happen. So that's it's unfortunate. While it does seem she enjoys spending time with you, as the two of you sit in comfortable, almost contented silence, watching old shows you've seen 2 or 3 times, your ever-increasing fear of your relationship becomes one-sided, and the relationship is becoming one-sided and more heavily on you. Worst of all, this nagging fear has made you more self-conscious than ever and withdrawing ever inwards. So basically, we're talking to her less, and you started to pull yourself even from Alex herself. What do? Despite the bad times, your girlfriend sincerely loves you. Relationships are a two-way street, and you resolve to always be there for her, like she's been there for you. Tell Alex how important she is to you, and enjoy your evening. We've got 2 things. We can ask Alex if she is happy with our relationship, or we don't say anything. You're already worried about her being upset with you. Now, honestly, both of these are difficult, because if we don't say anything, then our relationship will continue, but it could continue in a situation where neither of us want to be together, because we don't want her to be with us because, we're holding her back, and she doesn't want to be with us because we aren't talking to her. So I think we have to go with, ask Alex if she's happy. But, if she says no, then that will be crushing for our character. You look over at Alex, who hasn't noticed you watching her yet, and you try to pass the expression on her face. You worry if it's sheer boredom or bare tolerance. You wonder if she's thinking about all the fun things that she'd be doing tonight if she wasn't trapped on this couch with you, ordering from one of the same free take-up places you always order from. A sense of disappointing has creeped over you as you picture what the night could have been if you'd just accepted the invitation she had made earlier. I know this is pretty boring Friday night for you. Are you really happy to be with me, being like this? She turns to you, her forehead wrinkled. Why do you ask me that so often? You feel her body stiffen and pull away from yours just a little. Well, you start, but you're unable to think, and yeah, you don't know how to answer. It's probably silly, but reassuring when I hear we're on the same page. I want to make sure I'm right for you. Both of those are grayed out. We can't have a proper conversation because we're just too afraid. I know it's not what you'd usually be up to. I don't know. Sometimes I get kind of worried that you're getting bored sometimes. Never mind. We're going to go with 3 just because, 4 makes a lot of sense. But it could be construed as accusing her of finding us boring rather than actually alluding to the problem. We're going to go with 3. I know it's what you're usually up to. Alex frowns. What do you mean by that? Going out and doing stuff, partying and stuff. She sighs and falls against the couch. It's not like I want to do those things all the time. I like nights in too, just like everyone else. She turns to you, frustration wearing on her face. Sometimes I swear it feels like you don't know me at all. Okay, that's actually really crushing. It's not that your voice trails off and you notice that she is an exasperated look on her face that you've seen once or twice when you have conversations like this. Conversations where you're poorly expressing your own self-doubt and insecurity, seeking reassurance, but really feeling like you're making things worse. She sighs again, time louder, turning towards the flickering screen. I like spending time with you, okay? If I didn't, I wouldn't be here. The annoyed tone of her voice makes you think otherwise, but you take it as a sign you should probably drop it for now and you feel badly for upsetting things. Okay. So we are getting further away from our girlfriend. We are pushing her away by not being able to talk to her. It's Sunday. We allowed an old friend from school in town that is in town for the weekend to talk to you into leaving the house for a coffee and catch up. You meet her in a small cafe. So we've got out of the house. That's a start. And talk about what we've been up to since you last seen each other. You can't help feel like you were there's a lot more accomplished and interesting than you are while listening to them talk about their life after school. Okay. When it's your turn to brief them on your activities, you feel anxious and ashamed and give them a very abbreviated version. You try to talk about your job as little as possible and feel incredibly boring while you describe it, despite her expressing sincere interest in you and your life. Amanda has known you long enough to read your mood and tone and voice. She leans in to ask you a question while gently touching your hand, a look of genuine concern on her face. What's wrong? Do you suggest a change of location and confide in her honestly? Right, so we do have the chance to test the waters and open up a little bit. Insist that nothing is wrong. Defensively ask what she means by that. And notice that your hands are shaking. I assume notice your hands are shaking is just more than actually just noticing your hands are shaking. I assume it's something like notice them and then feel conscious about them, because that would be bad. So, I'm not insist nothing's wrong. Let's change the subject. We found that that's a bad idea. Defensively ask what she means by that. No, I don't want to push her away. So I'm going to test the waters and open up a little bit. But like we said, we've been too afraid to open up to our mum, and we've started pushing our girlfriend away. So I'm hoping that we don't get pushed away here. So I want to test the waters. She has asked what's wrong. Though you find it hard to lay out how you've been feeling lately to other people, you decide to test the waters and opening up to Amanda. She always seems easy to talk to. You begin to dance around the subject, dipping your toe into the pool to test the waters. Surprisingly, she catches on quickly and is even able to guess what you might say next. She asks the right questions, unlike our girlfriend, leading you to elaborate on the emotional state. Although, there we go, I'm just blaming our girlfriend for that, whereas, you know, maybe she is genuinely exasperated with us. And she has a right to be, but we also have a right not to be. It's really awkward one there. See, even I'm getting into the character and blaming our girlfriend. And then blaming myself for blaming the girlfriend. Wow, that's next level meta. You apologize profusely your entire time, feeling like being obnoxious, but she reassures you that you aren't burdening her. Amanda reveals that her mother suffered from clinical depression and that she spent many nights taking her through very similar feelings. She mentioned that therapy and medication have helped her tremendously and suggests that you give it a try. You fight it and feel somewhat like a charity case, but she tells you that she'll get you the number of her mother's therapist and email you as soon as she can. Afterwards, conversation drifts back to small talk and shared hobbies, and you find a pleasant afternoon together. Now, I will just point out here that, of course, this is US based, and being able to see a therapist is a luxury for a lot of people. Being able to afford to see a therapist is definitely one of these issues, especially since people with depression tend to be a lower income, mainly because I don't know if it's feeling depressed, meaning you can't work as well, meaning you get lower, quality, or if it's because you are, low income that you have depression because you cannot access a lot of these things. And maybe they both feed into each other, yet another horrible circle, possibly even a spiral. Yes, I would call that a spiral, actually. I think that, over time you will get worse and worse and worse in that one. So, at least we can afford to maybe talk to our therapist. So, we're wondering about therapy and medication. Wonder if it can help. You have an illness or simply complaining too much. So there we go. We are wondering if we have an illness or simply complaining too much. Again, we are blaming ourselves. I remember horror stories you've heard about antidepressants. Now, let's just have a quick talk about antidepressants. There aren't many horror stories. Antidepressants are effective. They aren't very effective, but they are effective, and it depends on the person. There is a horror story in that antidepressants in the short term can cause increased anxiety symptoms and an increased risks of suicide when you're going onto them, which is why you wouldn't use, your typical SSRI. We're talking about SSRIs here, by the way, because they're the vastly prescribed medication for depression. So SSRIs can cause an elevated risk of things like anxiety and depression and conversely suicide when going onto them, but they do help out after that. So if anyone still watching actually has anxiety or depression or, God forbid, suicidal thoughts, something you really should talk to your doctor about is medication, because, well, a lot of people say it isn't effective at all, and a lot of people say the horror stories about it, etc. And people complain about side effects. The side effects of depression and anxiety are bad, and they get worse. Like we've been saying all throughout this video so far, and we've been actually seeing in the game, it's a spiral. A lot of mental health is a spiral, particularly with anxiety and depression. And while you might think, oh, well, I don't need the medication now because I think my symptoms aren't bad enough that I think it's not worth the hassle of the medication, or maybe it's not worth the risk of getting symptoms of, side effects of medication. It's not worth it. My symptoms aren't that bad. Your symptoms can get worse. And when your symptoms get worse, it'll be harder to face them, it'll be hard to admit to them, and it can be harder to actually then get onto an SSRI or something similar. So I would say definitely don't feel the stigma of antidepressants, but I would also say if you're something like, you're going to get antidepressants from your GP, also, or, whoever your primary health provider is, also talk to them about something like, CBT or whatever talking therapy is available, because they are, more effective than antidepressants in most cases. So make sure you at least ask about that. You're not sure what you'll do if she remembers to email you the number for the therapist. You secretly hope she'll forget so you can avoid dealing with it at all. Hopefully we'll get the email. Monday, one of your days that your brother Malcolm is in town and free long enough for you to actually see each other. You have a dental appointment that day, but you make plans for him to pick you up afterwards. So we're going to a dental appointment, and then we have our brother. The appointment takes longer than expected. Dentist tells you you've started grinding your teeth in your sleep to a worrying degree. Okay, I don't actually know that much about grinding teeth in your sleep, but I know it can happen with things like depression and so on, which can give you a little bit of an issue, but I don't actually really know much about it. Given how nearly everything in your life has been feeling enormous and stressful lately, this doesn't come as a surprise to you. He suggests that you try to reduce your stress levels and fits you for a night guard. Okay, so we basically got... I imagine a night guard is probably basically similar to maybe a mouth guard for rugby or whatever. It feels awkward and too big for your mouth, and you feel embarrassed looking at your puffed out face in the mirror with it. Well, we can wear it when we're asleep by ourselves, hopefully. You finish up the appointment in a hurry and leave about half an hour overdue for meeting your always punctual brother in the parking lot. You finish up as quickly as possible and leave the building to see your brother's car, but you don't see his Civic anywhere. You pass a blue Camaro, and jumps it beeps as you, causing you to jump in surprise. Okay, so our brother now has a Camaro rather than a Civic. You hop in the passenger seat and compliment him on his new ride. He mentions it's a perk of promotion he recently obtained at work. Okay, so I'm guessing at this point we start feeling bad that we're falling behind. He's talking about how his career really taken off, how he's starting to look for houses and his wife soon. With his wife. Okay, so he's already married. We're not married. He's got promotion with a Camaro, and we've got this dead-end job. You clutch your bag containing your night guard in your hand and feel you'll clench your teeth as you think of your crummy apartment and how long it's been since... Yep. He's only 2 years older than you, but it feels like he's eons ahead of you. So he asks, how did your appointment go? Did you get drilled full of holes or what? A sense of shame creeps over you. Laugh about your dorky night guard with your brother. We can't do that because we're too awkward. Tell him about the night guard and why we need it. Tell him that routine cleaning, or tell him that your tooth grinding problem, but not the stress causing it. Let's tell him about the night guard, right? Let's actually try and be open from now on. We had a good experience with being open to the last person, Amanda. So let's try and be open with him. Let's tell him about the night guard and why we need it. Is that a stress thing? Yeah, I guess I've been having a hard time lately. I'm sorry to hear that, kiddo. He glanced over at you. Anything you want to talk about? I don't know. It's hard to talk about. Trying to figure out where to start feels like pin down something flying around in your head, except one of a million tiny bits of static flying around in there. It's a constant din of noise in the back of your head that never go away. It only ever gets turned down. You try to explain this to Malcolm, and he gives a lot of questions about judgment in an effort to help you give word to this jumbled up mass of negative emotion. The two of you end up getting takeout and going back to your place, and you quickly talk into the night. Your kitten takes a liking to him really quickly, and despite the seriousness of the conversation going on around her, she rolls around between the two of you. So this is why kittens are amazing, because they can always, they can always make something that's very difficult better. After a long back and forth, he asks, is there anything I can do to help this? Don't tell Mum, okay? Yeah, she wouldn't get it, he replies with a slight laugh. Does talking about it help? Sometimes, kind of. Well, okay, now that you can call me anytime you need. He rests one of his enormous hands on your shoulder. You'll get through this, kiddo. We are depressed. Interaction is exhausting, and you're becoming more and more withdrawn. It was very depressed before, right? We were very depressed, now we're just depressed. So I think we're getting better. We've managed to open up to a few people and talk about it. Particularly someone like our brother is particularly helpful. I find this is, tends to be something like depression or really all mental health illness, especially because, other ones can lead into depression or depression can lead into other mental health problems. Being able to talk to other people about it and, particularly be honest and open up about it is kind of, an important thing. So we'll go next. Sunday morning, we grab our morning coffee and scoot your rapidly growing kitten, I know that feeling, off our office chair, and despite her protest, sit down at your desk to check your email. A new message pops up. It's from Amanda! And you remember meeting her. Awkwardly bring up her feelings. Hey buddy, hey, sorry it's been long. I meant to get this to you sooner, but it took me a while to get hold of my folks back home. Dad told me to say hi, by the way. Anyway, I remember what we talked about last time I saw you, and I remember you aren't, and I hope you aren't insulted, but I asked my mum for the number of her therapist. Don't worry, I didn't tell her who it was for. I think she worried about me now. Ha ha ha. So she gives you the number. It's a really good office. You should look into it. Talking to someone never hurts. I'm really sorry about, if you're worried about money, don't be. They're one of the few that has a really good sliding scale fee system and won't charge you for what you can't afford. Okay, so we've actually got a therapist who's apparently fairly good, or, anecdotally is, and has a fairly affordable price range, which, still, of course, can be, very affordable for a few people. But, no, at least I assume so. I don't think they'll do free stuff, I guess. But, yeah. I'm pleased with that. So, hope you're feeling better. It's early enough that you can make a call and make an appointment today. Your kitten curls up in your lap as you consider what to do. Now, the kitten curling up on our lap really helps on this one. Call the therapist number you're looking for as to help they can offer. No. We're not quite there yet. Try your luck and call the number, even though the mere thought of talking to someone makes you anxious. She cared enough to send it to you after all. Sleep on it. Putting things off really doesn't help. If we can do it now, do it now. As always, that is kind of a motto for life. If you can do it now, don't put it off, don't procrastinate. But particularly with things like depression or anxiety, you can end up having a thought spiral about it, and it kind of goes downhill. You can work yourself up over it to the point where you're so anxious about it that those feelings can really get in the way. Close the email. This is being embarrassing enough already. No, we're going to try our luck and call the number. We read for it a few times. And with the memory of the uncomfortable conversation makes you feel newly embarrassed and self-conscious, part of you also encourages you by the fact that she cared enough about you to go back to it at all. Sitting in front of your computer, you listen to a number of question things, whether or not Amanda sent you this number out of pity or perhaps some sense of obligation. You're almost unconsciously, you reach the phone before you realize what's happening. You're listening to the therapist's line ringing. Before you can bring yourself to hang up, you listen to the slightly clinical but not unpleasant voice of the receptionist on how she can help you. Now, this is an interesting thing. When answering the phone, actually, from someone actually going through a lot of this stuff, you don't want to answer it too quickly, because by answering the phone too quickly, you can seem like you're trying to force them into talking very quickly, or they can feel hurried. So you don't want to answer the phone immediately. You don't want to be straight there on the phone, but also you don't want to let it ring too long, because they can have second thoughts in that time. The ideal range is about 3 to 4 rings, because that's the sort of time in that they can establish themselves in on the phone call. They can, they're like, right, I'm in a phone call. I can take what's coming. I can take the person saying hello to me. Whereas if you approach them before that and they're really worked up, they might just go and put the phone down. And you might laugh about that, but it's a genuine thing. People just making snap calls is actually a big part of answering these phones. Snap calls actually make up a very large portion of these because people just can't talk about it. But if you leave the phone too long, the person might have second thoughts and decide, what am I doing? Put the phone down. So this is really nice. Before we can hang up, the receptionist asks you how you can help out. I'd like to make an appointment with the doctor, and the conversation is quick and not nearly as unpleasant as you're fearing, and quicker than you can say Freudian slip, you've scheduled an appointment. Quicker than you realize appointment day rolls around. What do? Go to the therapist's office. Head to the therapist's office, even though you're totally unsure what to do. Sit in your couch, however, and try to talk yourself in or out of it. And just the thought of going into a point ties your stomach in knots. So we're obviously going to go. The fact that we can actually make it there, apparently, head to the therapist's office, is a good thing, okay? If you can go, go. Because it may seem silly, like I don't need to go because I can go. But obviously, that kind of is a silly thing. It'll get to a stage where you can't go, you'll end up winding yourself up too much, and then you can't go to something like this. So make hay while the sun shines. Take the advantages and opportunities that are displayed to you. Now, I find this is actually a kind of a big thing. I'll just mention about waiting lists. In the UK, particularly where I live, I think the waiting list for access to mental health facilities is at least 6 months. I remember at one stage it was 13 months. 13 months. Not only is that a ridiculous amount of time, but it's also an amount of time where someone can just table flip and decide, I don't need this anymore. It won't help. What am I doing? As we've said before with the ringing on the phone, it applies in real life as well to that. And honestly, I think it is a real problem with mental health access, that mental health is just so underfunded. But waiting times like that, if you're waiting for something, some sort of, I'm trying to think of an actual, physical health condition that, it doesn't really do much damage, but can, last a long time. But I can't think of one off the top of my head that would be applicable. But with something like mental health problems, you can end up getting a lot worse, and you can actually end up, even if you're not getting worse, just deciding, no, I won't go. And especially since you can, maybe not getting a lot worse, but you can have ups and downs. If you go into an upswing and you can, feel you can face a few things, and you sign up for an appointment, and then by the time your appointment rolls around, you're back in a downswing and you don't go, that's 13 months or whatever wasted, and you've got to go 30 months again from next you sign up to appointment. So I think that is a real issue. So if you can find that you can go to something like that, or you feel you can, even if it's something small like phoning up, say, the Samaritans or another organization like that, and you need something to talk about, do it, because you might not have another chance. New therapist is Dr. Susan Melville, a tall woman in her mid-40s with disarming demeanor and patient eyes with the start of a slight smile lines. She makes you feel comfortable fairly easily, which is a pleasant surprise after all your anxiety over the appointment. As you leave, you make a second appointment. You're still skeptical about this, but you figure you might as well see what goes. The hardest part, it seems, was taking the first step. You're not sure if you're going to tell your family or your partner, but you figured you'd deal with that when the time comes. Either way, you feel relieved that you managed to see this through instead of being paralyzed with worrying over it. If nothing comes out of it, you did something, you're emotionally exhausted when you get home and collapse into your bed. You sleep better than that night than you have in a week, and you're not sure. So we're moderately depressed. You find it hard to focus on anything because you get physically and mentally exhausted very quickly. But we're sleeping a lot better, at least. You are in therapy with a good counselor. You're doing cognitive behavioral therapy techniques, and they're starting to help. So here you go, CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy. I mentioned it before. CBT is cognitive behavioral therapy. And we can go next. So we're doing fairly well. Obviously, I do have the benefit of understanding this a little bit, and also we are playing from the point of view of a person to win the game. Win in inverted commas. There isn't ever really... It's very hard to get rid of depression, and it's not really something that you can choose to get rid of. It might go away, it might not, but you can get it to a coping point where it can be, as they talked about before, with the noise in the background of your brain, you can get it dialed all the way down, and you can have it there dialed all the way down, but there is always a risk of it coming back. But you can, with time, with therapy, and with the right medication, etc., you can actually dial it down, but it can be very difficult to do. So then Wednesday morning, lately you've developed a nasty habit of waking up 10 to 20 minutes before your alarm rings, and unfortunately today is no exception. Honestly, I'd rather that than sleeping through my alarm. You lay in bed, each minute taking closer and closer to wake up time, and passing on a swelling wave of ever-encroaching dread. We frantically pound the snooze button and then retreat back under your blankets, as if the warmth of your comforter can shield you from the passage of time. You're almost always having difficulty rising from bed, but today the task is simply nothing short of Herculean after several snooze cycles. By the way, Herculean, the derivation of that is from Hercules. Hercules is actually not the correct name. It should be Heracles. Heracles is the actual original hero from Greek mythology. Hercules was the hero ported into Roman mythology. So if anyone's actually seen the movie Hercules, which is a movie about the Greek pantheon of gods, and Hercules, that's wrong. It should be Heracles, because he's named after his mother, Hera. After several snooze cycles, you decide that you can't deal with work today. You're incapable of even rousing yourself from bed. No mention you snooze so many times it would be impossible to make it on time now anyway. Hop out of bed and start getting ready for work. You'll be late, but at least it's better than not going at all. We can go into work, or we can call our boss and tell him we're sick. Now, there is the temptation to do that, to avoid, him saying, oh, you came in late, blah, 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 and we'll feel bad about being late. But I don't want to get in the cycle of taking sick days. Because, again, not going to things will lead to that cycle where it can become easier to use that as a backup, to use that as a refuge. And it makes you feel safe in the short term, but it limits what you can do, and then you feel bad about it, and then you lose your job for not going. And of course, we get this downward spiral. So there we go, another downward spiral for you. It's like we're in a sea full of whirlpools, all spiraling downwards to the bottomless abyss. We're going to head into work. In spite of the fact your body is actively fighting you, literally every step of the way, you manage somehow to drag yourself out. Surprisingly, you end up being only 5 minutes late and nobody seems to notice or care. Though when you woke up, the simple act of being physically present at your job seems like an impossibility, you are surprised at your inability to push on through the day. You are indeed really coping with the dullness of your job today. You seem to have slipped into a trance-like state of automation, automation, there we go, and time is nevertheless passing. Eventually, the end of the day rolls around, and you head home utterly exhausted, but at the same time almost proud of yourself for having stuck it out. You are definitely still depressed, but things are getting better. Whatever you're doing seems to be working, and you really feel like you're taking steps to effect positive change in your life. You now seem to enjoy seeing a therapist. Between giving you a chance to talk things out and the CBT, between giving you a chance to talk things out with the CBT techniques she shares with you, you find your sessions extremely helpful. You're not currently taking any medication for depression. So there we go. We're not even relying on medication for depression, and talking therapy, particularly CBT, is doing a lot of good for us. It's 2 a.m. on Sunday. You've working in the morning. You roll over to see the sickly glow of the alarm clock. You've been trying to fall asleep for over 3 hours now to no avail. Every time your head hits the pillow, you overcome with anxious thoughts. Basically, we're worrying about things. So, your thoughts run too fast for you to come to a satisfying conclusion on any one of them. Your room is completely silent, but the silence has given way to a loud static noise rattling around the inside of your head. Your heart beat loudly, and you worry it's beating a little too fast. You worry that your focus is too strong on your heart racing. Okay, so here we go. Here is a classic panic attack, a very classic in terms of its symptoms. Basically, we're worried that we're not falling asleep, so we're worrying about work. And because we're worrying, we're not getting to sleep. And so we're worrying even more about work, which means that we're not getting sleep even more, to the point where we've made ourselves so anxious, basically our body's dumping adrenaline to ourselves. You know, it's a very stupid hindbrain reflex. Our hindbrain is basically telling us, quick, there's something terrible going on, fight or flight, here you go. And it's just dumped us all the adrenaline we have into our system, and there's no reason for it. And this panic is now got to a point where we're having a panic attack, it sounds like. So our heart is racing, we don't know what to do, we feel like we're having a heart attack. This is classical panic attack symptoms, although they do present in a number of different ways. You have to be awake for working a mere 8 hours, and you know that work is so much worse on only a few hours sleep. What do? Can't force yourself to go to sleep. Can't go to bed. Can't snap out of it. Can't just close your eyes and let it happen. You're probably going to go into work tomorrow exhausted and fuck everything up and get fired. Go to your computer. Sleep is clearly not happening no matter how long you stay there. Well, we've got no choice. We have to go to our computer. This is what happens when you have something like a panic attack trigger. Now, panic attacks don't need to necessarily trigger at any particular point. They can just trigger randomly from just a little bit of worry about something. So you're worrying about the next day. Your anxiety kicks in. Your anxiety kicks in more. Spiral. This is the end of a spiral for this anxiety. The short term is panic attack. You get out of bed and head to your desk. Laying in bed with nothing, blah, 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 nothing's happening from that. The harshness of the light screen makes you squint as you turn it on, despite how often you find yourself in this exact situation. There have been many nights lately just like this. As you begin reading a news story, an online friend of yours IMs you. You're up late, I see. Yeah, can't sleep. Again. Thinking too much again. Thinking. You guessed it. Want to talk about it. You end up talking with Attic for quite some time about how you've been feeling. Now, this is actually a good thing. We probably wouldn't be able to talk to him about how we've been feeling, I guess, had we not started opening up to people and maybe doing our CBT. He's always been easy to talk to about personal matters, and the added security of talking online helps. Being able to rethink what you say as you type it out and check it before you send it out helps you gather your thoughts, and you find it less intimidating in a way to type it into a prompt and say it out loud. He says he doesn't want to be the guy who can diagnose blah blah, but it sounds like you might have depression. You pause. Are you really that transparent? Because he suggests we should see a doctor. Or is it you've gotten used to talking about your feelings at this point? There we go. So we've gotten used to talking about feelings. You're on something that makes you a little paranoid, but you shake it off. So basically, you can see if there's a good doctor nearby. So I'm assuming this is the road that leads to medication. So 1, this is just a low night. I'm normally able to sleep and I don't have depression, but thank you for your concern. No, it's okay. I have talked to someone about it. Let's go with I talked to someone about it. I know people suck at understanding this sort of stuff sometimes, but there's nothing wrong with having depression. You shouldn't be ashamed of having bronchitis or something, so there's no reason to be ashamed if it's your brain that's sick instead. There we go. So there was my comment about, it may all be in your head, but so is a brain tumor, taken, very similarly, but with bronchitis. Now, I honestly use the brain tumor thing because it's cancer, and everyone understands cancer, and everyone understands that cancer is a bad thing, and no one would blame you for having cancer. And it's also in your head, so we can use it's all in your head, which is obviously the horrifically cliched response to it, and we can actually use that and be ironic about it. Don't take me ever using that as literal, by the way. It isn't all in your head in the classical sense of it's all in your head. It all is in your head, but that doesn't make it any different from something that's actually, a physical problem with your cells or whatever. It is just as bad for you. And just as treatable as many diseases. Often. Depends on the mental health illness, and also depends on the physical one. But there are, solutions for it. But that's something we have to understand, that mental health illness isn't as archaic as it used to be in the Dark Ages. You spent a few more minutes talking about it, but your therapy and your feelings, he's incredibly supportive, and you're happy that you will be confident you understand your illness is willing to lend near. A little while later, you drift back to sleep, kitten in tow. See, the kitten really does help. I like this game. It's a pro kitten game. He's incredibly supportive, and you're happy to find. There we go. Sorry. Even in therapy, you find you're still going to have nights like these sometimes. It's good to know you have a friend who will carry you through them. We're still working. It's cool. Oh, I'm really getting all the feels for my kitten right now. It's a chilly Thursday. You've just gone off work. It's felt like one of the longest days you've faced in recent memory. Even though nothing exceptional has happened, a ton of minor things kept going wrong, and co-workers had the patience throughout the day. Co-workers have tried our patience, sorry. You considered leaving early, but the last thing you want to do was deal with your insufferable boss on top of everything else. You're lost in thought on the commute home, and your feelings of frustration both with your life and the world around you build up as you run into minor illnesses like bumping into someone. So basically, you've had a bit of a crappy day. You open your front door and stare at your apartment. An overwhelming theme of exhaustion comes to you, and you feel like your energy levels are low enough that you're just ready to settle into a single activity tonight. What do? Just shake off your bad mood and do something fun for the rest of the evening. Not going to happen. So you can reach out to someone close to you, or don't burden anyone with your problems. Distract yourself. I'm going to reach out to someone close to us. I just hope it isn't Alex. It sounds really bad. Your head feels too noisy and you need to trade is actual conversation. Your therapist did say that it was important to reach out to your support network, so you might as well give it a shot. Who do you call? Your co-worker Sam, he's friendly enough and could be a good distraction. Your mother, she unconditionally loves you. Alex, your girlfriend. Malcolm, he's family and fun to talk to. Let's reach out to Malcolm, because he was fairly accepting last time. The phone rings 2 or 3 times before his wife picks up. He tells you that he's away on business right now. You redial his cell phone. It goes straight to voicemail. Feeling defeated. Yeah, okay, maybe we shouldn't have gone with him. He's always so busy and important, and it rhymes us up how we're not busy and important. Oh, here we go. Hey, kiddo, I'm sorry I missed your call. I was in a tunnel on the way back to my hotel. How's it going? He enthusiastically greets you. Although you feel awkward about it, you talk to your older brother about how you're feeling and your condition is doing right now. Okay, I'll be completely honest. I didn't expect that. Having him call us back and say, oh, how's it doing right now? I was in a tunnel. He was away on business, so I had to phone his mobile phone. I'd have expected, when he called us back, us to go, oh, no, it's fine. I was just, checking in or whatever, because that's actually what I would have expected. Obviously, the person that we are playing is doing a lot better job than I would have expected. So we talked to him. The two of you talk on the phone for a very good long time, and he proves to be an excellent listener. Very skillful at finding the perfect time to lighten the mood for a joke without seeming like he's making fun of you, or he doesn't take things seriously. He reminds you that you can call him any time, that you don't need to if you need to let off some steam. You say your goodbyes, and you find that even though you've ended up in tears 1 or 2 times and explaining things, the whole conversation has gone a lot better than in your headspace. Oh, has done a lot better. Has done a lot to get you into a better headspace. There we go. So, we're doing well. We are doing well. Utterly nondescript Wednesday afternoon. You're sitting on the couch with Dr. Melville. She begins, surprised by taking her characteristic therapy silence, and begins speaking up right away. I want to start by saying you've decided to come to see me. It's an incredibly important first step. She begins, I wanted to take some support, blah, blah, blah. The mention of medication, right? She's mentioning medication. Many people find adding a pharmacological element to the treatment to be very helpful, and even prefer to take drugs, completely eliminating their need to visit a therapist at all. Provided you rely on your support network. There we go. I was about to say drugs alone are a little bit less than ideal. I would prefer if you kept talking, should you choose to start medication, so they can monitor your progress and adjust as needed, but the choice is ultimately yours. I want to run the option by you to gauge what your thoughts on the matter might be. Right, so accept a prescription as a way to augment our therapy, tell that we'd like to try drugs instead of therapy, and the idea of messing with your brain chemicals makes you uneasy, you'll stick to therapy. This whole therapy thing has always overwhelmed you, and this is the final straw, you're done with both. Well, since we can accept drugs in addition to therapy, I'm going to go with that. You think the matter over long and hard, and we go for it. If it doesn't help, at least it probably won't hurt, right? True. Side effects for SSRIs in particular, common side effects are things like headache and so on, and they generally go away after about 2 weeks. Varying by SSRI and definitely varying by person, so it just tends to be on average. But, after a while, they do. The vast majority of people tend to find that those symptoms disappear. But it can be a little bit difficult to get over those hurdles, especially if you start with severe depression. You can end up getting frustrated with the lack of progress with that, and also having this extra headache lumped on top of you. After an intense and protracted period of internal vacillation, you decide to bite the bullet and go for it. You tell her that, yeah, we'll go for it, you'd like to try medication, and thinking back on the decision later, you're pretty sure you had your fists tightly clenched the whole way through. You've been taking your medication regularly, and while you were skeptical at first, it's hard to argue with the fact that you're feeling better than you have in a long time. Okay, so we're feeling really good right now in comparison to how we were. Of course, we still have issues, we still have depression, but we're actually dealing with it fairly well. Taking medication regularly is very important, by the way. As soon as you stop your medication, or if you stop it for a few days, you can have pretty downswings, like when I said when you first go onto it, you can have downswings and so on. You can get that, especially when you miss your medication. That can be something, particularly in people who are very severely depressed or whatever. When they start this medication up, they can find it hard to maybe take them regularly because of the irregularities of their life. And of course, not taking medication regularly doesn't help at all and can actually make things a little bit worse. The half-life of most SSRIs falls somewhere between 24 and 48 hours, I believe, off the top of my head. So if you miss a day or two, then you suddenly find that your body has none in it, and your body will start to take the appropriate steps. Of course, I'm not a doctor, again, saying that. If you actually want advice on SSRIs and, how to take them and what to take them with and so on, etc., consult your GP or your primary care. It's Wednesday. You're visiting your parents' house. Oh dear, this is going to be awkward. One of the handful of times you drive out to visit your old hometown, you've seen random people. Your brother Malcolm arrives with his wife in tow shortly before you all sit down to dinner. Oh god, I'm so glad Malcolm's here. During dinner, they all catch up on Malcolm and talks about his amazing things he's done on the road. Your mother turns to you and asks what you've been up to since you've seen them the last time. Oh, same old, you say. Nothing really new going on. Your mother makes a face. Oh, nothing new? How long are you planning to stay at your job of yours? Tell them about the exciting new job you're gunning for. Lie. Tell them what you want to hear, that you're actively looking for a more prestigious position. Admit that you don't know what to do. Excuse yourself to the bathroom. I can admit that I don't know what to do, but I'm afraid that my parents might blame on me. But I do have Malcolm here to support me, okay? Lie is the alternative. I think that I'm going to go with admit. Now, this is a big thing. This is the first time that we're actually, telling our parents is, admitting that there's something that's not hunky-dory. So we're going to admit it and see what happens. Because even if our parents are going to say bad things, will be like, oh, well, you don't know what to do. Look at Malcolm. At least Malcolm will be there to back us up, right? We're relying on Malcolm to have our back in this one. Actually, I'm not really sure what I want to do right now. Your mum puts down her fork. So, you're planning on living the way you do for the rest of your life? How could you afford a house on that paycheck? What about kids? There we go. That's really helpful. That is incredibly helpful right there, Mother. Thank you very much. Your father interrupts, lightly placing his hand over your mother's. It's okay, Linda. Let the kids be what they want, what they are. There's nothing wrong with not knowing what you want to do in your 20s. I didn't get into construction till I was nearly 40. Your mother looks across the table at you, unsatisfied with her husband's reasoning. I don't think it's normal for someone at that age not to have a path. You need to think hard about it or you'll never make anything of yourself. Mom, come on, Malcolm interjects. This emotionally exhausts you. You want to tell her that you are thinking hard. That sometimes it feels like you're lost in the woods, and that if you were to drop dead in your apartment, the world wouldn't notice. Yeah, that's the beginning of suicidal thoughts right there. If you want to make her understand that there's, more often than not, you feel like an alien, like there isn't anything in this world that feels like a place where you belong, and you have no idea how to fix or what to do. You wish you could find the words so she would understand that being looked down on for this kills you, and that drives... Yep. Instead, you go very quiet. The rest of the meal with your mind goes numb. Everything inside you feels exhausted. Okay. That's a bit of a setback. Luckily, we seem to be doing okay still down here. That is the last time I'm going to open up to my mother about my mental illness. I like my dad. Malcolm, of course, is amazing. He did try to stick up for us. But screwed if I'm going to talk to mother again. It's a rainy night. You're hurrying through the rain to Alex's apartment at her behest. Although the pace is quick, the rain is steadily soaking up to your pant legs as you traverse the town, and it's darkening your already poor mood. The call came when you were at home after a day of dealing with abnormally frustrating people. You spend the afternoon trying to unwind and get on some work on your project. Alex calls and interrupts with one of those, tried to make progress. Oh, sorry. Alex called and interrupted one of those, tried to make progress, get frustrated at not making progress, have a harder time making progress due to frustration repeat loops. So yeah, there we go. Another spiral. And you haven't fully shaken off the feelings of being annoyed with yourself from it yet. You knock on her door, and on the third knock, her voice call from further in the apartment to come in. Lights are turned down, you squint to navigate as you clutch onto your damp umbrella, but you end up hitting your shin on a side table, mumbling a profanity under your breath. You barely make out Alex emerging from her hallway, clad in what appears to be a robe with the bare skin of her legs peering out underneath. Why don't you come in and warm up? She asks in a slightly cheesy, sexy voice. After a beat of silence, she states more naturally, my roommates are out of town this weekend, so I thought it'd be nice to have a little fun while they're away. You appreciate her affection, but you're too wrapped up in your own negative feedback loop to be in the mood right now. What do? Let go of the stress and be intimate with your girlfriend. We can do it! We can have sex, because we actually are in a fairly good place. Luckily, our mother did not set us back far enough to be awkward having sex. We can do it. So we can let go of our stress. We can actually actively let go of our stress via sex. By the way, apparently sex is a very good technique for getting rid of stress. Mainly because anxiety is, particularly anxiety and depression are particularly good particularly easily gotten rid of, or at least, particularly good thing to get rid of them is exercise. Exercise definitely helps. So, talking therapy, medication, and exercise are really good ways. Oh, and of course, kitten. There we go, 4. Of course, kitten. 4 really good ways of, and I know it's easy to say, oh, yeah, you're depressed. Right, there you go. Medication, kitten, exercise, talking therapy. Done. You're cured. But it really isn't that easy. I'm literally just suggesting things and, helping enlighten if you need the enlightening. Or at least if you know someone with this problem, you can start suggesting these things. But remember, take it carefully. If the person involved is having a hard time, just careful how you step. Of course, stepping carefully and slowly is much better than stepping rashly and using irrational words. So let's be sexy. Let's be intimate. You look at her standing barely lit and notice there are a few candles scattered around the apartment. That's a bit of a fire hazard. It occurs to you that she has tried to make this night special for the two of you, so you decide to put aside your bad mood and simply be with her, even though you have a tight knot of antisocial frustration in your stomach. The two of you head to the bedroom, and although you enjoy the closeness, you've been having problems getting physically aroused. You've been warned that this could be a side effect of the medication you're taking, but you were hoping this would be one of the percentage of the population that isn't affected. I'll be honest, it's the majority, I believe, aren't affected. But it is a fairly large minority by all means. It isn't a tiny minority. SSRIs can have both that effect and the opposite effect. Yeah, so that's a fun one for you. She asks if she's doing something wrong. You pull her closer. No, nothing like that. I'm just having difficulties relaxing. Okay, she looks at you with uncertainty. I had a bad day at work and I guess I'm distracted. A wave of humiliation washes over you as you hold her. You're really embarrassed about your inability to perform, although you're grateful that you got the chance to be close with her anyway. And we are now moderately depressed again. Our medication is helping to keep the edge off and keep some of the darker, more negative feedback loops from being as prevalent. Okay, and we've dropped down on the CBT because of our inability to have sex. So maybe we shouldn't have gone for the SSRIs. We could have just stuck with the counselling. Hopefully, our girlfriend won't get too knocked back by that. I don't really want to end up having to break up and then have to deal with that. We trudge home from our job, we collapse into a couch, blank and numb. Well, it's certainly not your dream job. Basically, we're wondering about our jobs. So 1 is get proactive, polish off your resume and start looking for new jobs. 2 is try and at least be productive by focusing your efforts on your project night. 3 is aimlessly go through classifieds. 4 is turn on the TV. I'm not going to aimlessly go through classifieds, and I'm not going to turn on the TV. I'm going to go with our project. I'd like to do 1, and honestly, I think if we'd spent the last night having sexy time with our girlfriend without the SSRIs, we'd probably have been able to do 1, because I think we'd have been good enough to be able to do 1. But I'm instead going to focus on our projects. So you're surprised to find that your thoughts drift to your long-neglected project. You must be doing a pretty good day. So whatever the reason, your anger that you've been feeling towards your day seems to have been converted into pure passion. As you seem to be overflowing with ideas tonight, it's as if you've got a build-up of ideas that haven't gotten out and now you're in the zone. Excellent, so we're having a great time. So yeah, we've managed to boost our mood by having a great day. Well, not a great day, but a great work bit. When you go top bed that night. Oh, when you go to bed that night. Okay, that's a typo. You need to tell yourself that the job may suck, but at least you've got something you really care about. So yeah, basically we feel really good. It's a little past 8 PM on a Tuesday night. You're at a computer, frustration levels peaked, rubbing your eyes, sighing heavily. You're working on your project for your job that has stretched to wit's end to meet a looming deadline. You've dragged your feet a little at work due to your complete lack of energy in spite of wanting to do a good job. You find yourself unable to push past it and feel horribly useless at it. Your hand slides to your face to look at your screen as it beeps to you. Hey, are you there? I need to talk about something. What's going on? I can't multitask. I'm not awake enough to multitask. So we can tell we're busy. Try to regain your focus. Don't answer. Or answer Attic. Honestly, this is a really difficult one, and I honestly think that we do need Attic as a friend. Attic has been useful for us. I honestly think we have to answer Attic. Also, taking a break out from a task to be able to go and, do something else and then reboot, maybe that'll help. At least that's the theory. Of course, taking a break out from a task might mean we can't come back to it. Attic just found out they got cheated on. She? I'm going to go with he. Attic found out he got cheated on. I don't know what to do. Oh no, that's horrible. The two of you talk for a while. As you close the iron window, you feel horribly sorry for your friend. He thanks us for being there. You boot up your work project and find you're suddenly able to get some solid progress done on that night. So yeah, we actually managed to get work done after taking that break. So yeah, there we go. That is another tip for you, of course. This doesn't apply to just depression. This applies to work anytime. If you're feeling you've hit a dead end, you're just sitting there and you're like, things aren't happening. Take a break. Take a reset. Take a refresh. Go do something else. Something that takes your mind off it. Like, actually, don't just go sit on the couch, because you're still going to be running that process in the back of your mind. You haven't actually killed it and then refreshed it when you come back. Go do something else and then come back. So we are now doing well. You may still have your bad days, but you have effective ways of dealing with them. And yeah. We seem alive more lately by our therapist. You've been taking medication regularly and you seem to be pleased. Okay, cool. So we're really good. We're actually fairly good. You're in deep thought on the way back from therapy. However, you notice that this time you're not in the same negative feedback loops you usually get trapped in when being this introspective. Yeah, this is the problem. With being introspective, you tend to, if you're really depressed or, really anxious or whatever, or mixed anxiety, depression, you can end up getting this feedback loop just by being introspective, so you don't dare think about your feelings, which, of course, can lead to all other problems because you can't accept them. You realize you've got your bad days. Your lows aren't quite as low as they used to be. Your antidepressant bottle rolls across your dashboard as you take a left turn. You've been on the medication for quite a while now after a period of trying a few different things. Though you have minor side effects, their overall become an unnoticed part of your life. You feel as if your life has generally changed for the better recently. You begin to wonder if you need them anymore. You don't feel as much despair or hopelessness. You hate yourself a lot less these days. Maybe it's time to stop taking these, you think. I don't really need them anymore. Okay, this is an interesting one. Do you want to go off medication, or do you want to continue on medication? Honestly, I think there needs to be an option 3, which is discuss it with your therapist, and I'm going to state this for the record, okay? Anyone out there who is wondering about this decision, or comes to wondering about this decision, do option 3. Discuss it with the person who prescribed. Or with your therapist, if they didn't prescribe. But then again, your prescriber and your therapist might be 2 different people, especially if in the UK, you tend to have most, of your counselling will be done by a non-doctor, of course, who does not have expertise in, or at least most of the time does not have expertise in sort of pharmacological stuff, but has probably the basic grounding in it. So you probably want to discuss it with your doctor as well. Option 3 is, of course, the most important option. I do think that there probably should be an option 3 here, but instead we are going to have to make one ourselves. I'm going to continue on the medication. I hope we've got over that side effect of not being able to get aroused. Otherwise, that would be a bit of a bigger side effect. I hope that side effect's gone away. We're going to continue on it because going off them could lead to issues, especially if we go off them without talking to our therapist. Because you need, with SSRIs particularly, you need to bring yourself down. Pardon me. You need to bring yourself down slowly. Don't whatever you do, stop, especially from high dosages. Because as we said before, that's bad. So continue taking your medication. You have the realization that you can't be sure if it's the general life change that's making you feel better or just a sign that medication is working. Not much has actually changed in life. We are still in our dead-end jobs, so it could be the medication as part of it. You decide that you decide against discontinuing your meds. It's not really a lesson you learn the hard way, and the side effects of this particular kind are negligible. Next time you've seen Dr. Melville, you'll tell her about this. She informs you that this is a common train of thought for people who have begun using medication to help them manage their depression experience, and you've managed to dodge a bullet because it generally ends poorly. There we go. So I'm glad we actually did get to talk to our doctor. Yeah. If you go onto medication and then go, oh, I feel better, don't go, okay, I don't need medication anymore. Possibly it's the medication is helping. And of course, if you go off the medication, you can get worse. And you can actually come out worse because you just decide to stop the medication entirely without doing it properly from it, which is, of course, a very bad thing. She asks you to talk to her first before making decisions about medication in the future. There we go. Good. Another sleepless Thursday night. You're at Agnes' apartment, wide awake in bed as she's sleeping peacefully beside you. Hopefully we didn't have any sexy type problems earlier. She fell asleep hours ago and you've been laying here unable to shut your brain enough to sleep. You've added the feelings of insecurity about your relationship to the kind of noise in your head keeping you up tonight, right? So this is our main issue now. I don't think we have many other main issues lying around, but our main issue is our relationship. It was kind of tense night between the two of you. You arrived after a stressful day at work, and as you made dinner together, you barely said a word. You were stuck in your own head and had a hard time really being present. She told you she could tell you were in one of those moods. Okay, we haven't really told her properly about our depression, so she's calling them one of those moods. Possibly a bad choice of words by her, but possibly she hasn't noticed that we're actually depressed, and we haven't told her, so it's something that we just need to communicate to her, really. She said that you wouldn't push you, but she missed talking to you as you sat on the couch together. She wanted to tell you how much you wanted to tell her how much you love her, but you couldn't let the words come out and ended up sounding offensive instead. You traced your fingers across her arm just lightly enough. You haven't explained your depression to her or how you started seeing a therapist or that you've been taking medication, and it's starting to feel more and more like a secret you keep instead of something she simply doesn't know about yet. It's becoming more and more apparent that it's impacting your relationship with her, and you feel guilty about this. She stirs in the sleep. Oh, she wakes up. Okay, so you can tell her about your situation, open up to her V's, or tell her there's nothing and she should go back to sleep. Okay, obviously we're going to tell her about the situation. Hopefully she'll be understanding. Otherwise, honestly, if she's not understanding, my opinion, this is my professional opinion, fuck her. Not in the verb sense. Unfortunately, we can't open up with V's. But we're going to tell her about the situation. Hopefully she'll be understanding. I think she will. You feel like a jerk for accidentally waking up. She asks if anything is okay. So, no, actually, everything isn't okay. Can I tell you something important? She sits up, rubbing the sleep out of her eyes. For the rest of the night, you lay side by side, holding hands as you tell her everything. You tell her how it's more than just feeling sad sometimes. She listens the entire time, occasionally asking questions about how this or this works, or asking you to explain something further. She squeezes your hand and tells you that she understands, that she's sad and you didn't tell her sooner. After laying silent for a moment, the weight of what you did hits you. You've desperately wanted to say something, to tell her how she's feeling about all this, but you're too afraid of what the answer would be to ask. You start convincing yourself you start convincing yourself that now she knows everything she's going to leave. There's no way someone could deal with how you really are. So how can I help? What do you need me to do? She asks. You think for a second, and the answer you come up with fills you with despair. I honestly don't know. I wish I knew how to fix this, but I don't know how you can do it. You can do anything. I think it's something I just have to live with. She looks you in the she looks at you with sad eyes before kissing you on the forehead. Then I'll live with it. I don't know how you possibly love me. She rolls over, wraps her arms around your neck, settling her head on top of yours. You don't need to. Just know that I do. Honestly, that's kind of beautiful. And unfortunately, the next day we are feeling pathetic. You were leaving work tonight. A group of coworkers asked you if you wanted to join them for drinks. Feeling antisocial and put on the spot, you declined. Yeah, that's put on the spot. You can end up just falling into these defensive patterns. Like I said, with people asking and answering phones too quickly, you just react response. And your react response in this situation, because you're antisocial, because of your social anxiety, is you just want to be like, no, sorry, I've got plans. So, of course, we declined. So we have a habit of doing this. So, you never feel like this is how to act you never know how to feel in a group outing. You feel like a total creep since it seems to come so naturally to everyone who isn't you. You find yourself petrified of breaking some unknown social rule. Now, however, you find yourself alone at home. Your brain has begun to tell you how pathetic and sad you are, being unable to just be a normal person and go out with nice people. You can't figure out why you can't go on and meet people and enjoy yourself at the same time. You also feel like no one would possibly want to hang out with you because you're dull and boring anyway. You try a stereotypical strategy and boot up Netflix to distract yourself from these feelings, but frustration bubbles within you. Anyone else, blah, 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 whatever we will do. We can see if Attic is online, call Alex, drink, go out somewhere alone, play with your cat. Okay, so we've got some good options there. I don't want to go out somewhere alone. It is a possibility, but it could just end up with us alone at a bar. Drink. As I said previously, this is the road to alcoholism. Kind of something I don't even want to begin going down. Call Alex or see if Attic's online. So we've got both of Attic and Alex. I'm going to call Alex. I think that opening up to her a bit more is probably a good idea. Her phone rings a handful of times before going to voicemail. You know it's not uncommon for her to be at friends at this hour. You leave a voicemail, but end up calling again 15 minutes later. Still no response. You imagine Alex out with friends, and it makes us feel bad. You begin to think that maybe it would be better if she met someone tonight. So, she's a beautiful woman. She's a wonderful woman, and you feel like a constant joy kill on nights like this. Why can't you be normal? Next morning, Alex calls you back. She tells you she's left her phone in class and spent a boring night in her apartment too. You feel horribly embarrassed about how emotionally you've gotten over mistaken assumptions the night before. Okay, so she wasn't out. Makes us feel a little bit better, although kind of feel bad for her. And we now feel a bit embarrassed about that. But at least she wasn't doing anything either. We've arrived at Alex's apartment. You're happy to finally see her after a week of absence due to your schedules not lining up due to work and school. You hug her in the doorway, but she breaks away sooner than normal and sits down on the couch. She wants to talk about something. Oh, you're instantly worried that you've been blindsided by a breakup, but it's nothing bad, I promise. With that, she leads you over to the couch and sits on the other end facing you. So I hope this doesn't freak you out, and it feels like things are going too fast, just tell me. We seem to have a lot of weeks like this, and they really suck. I was thinking I'd ask, since things are so strong with us, what are your thoughts on maybe moving in together? Okay, so this is a good thing. She wants to move in. Do you want to, you ask? Yeah, I mean, I do. We've sort of logistics and everything, but those are all taken care of. So we can tell her you want to take your relationship to the next step with ease, move in together. We can't do that. I don't think that's possibly ever to do that with this sort of severe depression, that you can just take the next step with ease in this case. But tell her you have concerns, that we want to, but we have concerns, and discuss them honestly. Yeah, there we go. Tell her you want to, but we have concerns. Well, I'd like to, but I think it's best we talk about it a bit more for committing to a decision. Now, I think that's actually the best choice in any circumstance, that we actually have, fair discussions about making big life choices. Though she seems a little defeated, you make it clear that you're not trying to make excuses and simply mean that you want to talk. You reiterate a lot of what you told Alex that night, and although she gets a little defensive and tells you that you know all that already, she confirms that she's willing to help you sort through the issues. I feel like you forgot I love you sometimes. Ugh. I know that there will be bad days, and I'd rather try to work them through with you. We can figure all this out together. Yay. Her words sway you, and you can't help but hold her close to you. Aww. It's December. You've returned to your parents' house. Where's my kitten? I need my kitten. Why does my kitten choose this one time to be asleep? Socks. Oh, I don't think you can catch that on the microphone, but she just meowed back at me. And she's rolling over. Aww. Meow. No, she's having too much of a time over there. Okay, so I'm going to have to deal with this myself. Right. Going back to our parents. Christmas Eve snowfall. You laughed yourself at how incredibly cliched it seems. You sit down to dinner. You can't help but notice how being surrounded by the family and the overly kitschy atmosphere your mum's decorations have created, you actually made you feel relaxed and almost comfortable. Almost comfortable, and we're in our parents' house. This is something. Your mum's running around frantically checking the oven and stockings and generally trying to family time. Well, your dad sits in the head of the table drinking a beer and laughing with her brother Malcolm. His wife Karen is there too, whom you've gotten along well with, and your parents even agreed to let you bring Kitten along. Yay! We're bringing our kitten along. I'm going to bring my kitten along. I think that this is an interactive game. Since we're actually commenting about the game and how it affects real life, I do actually think that maybe I need to bring my kitten along too. Okay. So, she's been darting in and out of people's legs and hopping onto laps all night. You don't hop onto laps very much, do you? You occasionally. As you thoughtfully munch away on your turkey, listening to the conversation around you, your thoughts drift back over the last few months. You think about how hard things have gotten, replaying in your head some of your worst, as well as some of your best memories. It seems like these things just came to a head over the last few months, with a sudden flurry of relationship turmoil and professional anxiety, social stress, and above all, an omnipresent sense of weight it seems that you have recently become aware of. So you're drawn out of the reverie by your dad's booming laugh, some cheesy comments Malcolm makes have hit the mark. Sitting at the table, you're suddenly immensely glad for the chance to be able to ignore everything for an evening and not have to struggle trying to explain yourself for once. This is great. We're having a really good day. I like that. You gonna dart in and out of things? No. Oh. Oh. You wanna go up there? Fortunately, everyone seems to be content with laughing at each other's jokes and discussing sports teams, and for a while you think you might be able to get through dinner without any embarrassing personal intrusions. But no sooner did the thought cross your mind than the table conversation trickles off, leaving a slightly awkward silence to descend from the table. So, how are you doing these days? Your mum asks you pointedly. It's such a simple question, but one that seems to have had answered countless times recently. You take a moment to collect your thoughts, and then look up, you take a deep breath. Well. You never really thought yourself as a fighter, and even to say it now, it seems hokey, but looking back over the past few months, you still hate your job and find it unpleasant, but you're surprised to find that going to work every day is no longer a mental challenge. You can start adopting some clever techniques, like taking short 2-minute breaks every hour to break up the monotony, and you now view your job as just 8 short hours of day. Your compartmentalization technique, Dr. Melville told you, is actually working quite well. You know this job isn't what you want to do for the rest of your life, and you've actively looking for other positions, even attending a couple of preliminary interviews. Oh, excellent. So we're actually looking for a new job. We've started to make effort to go with your friends more, while the social scene still makes you uncomfortable sometimes. Very bit uncomfortable sometimes. You're more and more able to let yourself just enjoy the company. In fact, your relationship with many of them has increased over the past little while. You still definitely have days where you flake out or don't feel up to hanging out, but the most part of the time, your friends are understanding and appreciate your communication. By far, the biggest change you've noticed in your life has been your relationship with Alex. Yes! Hopefully not a sex life. But looking back, you feel it's only strengthened your relationship. She was always supportive of your emotionally, but lately the two of you have been even more in sync, and it's really starting to feel like you're building a life together. It even seems like the two of you have been making a concerted effort to sync up your schedules and have spending more time with each other. Dr. Melville has commented on how well you're doing and whether a result of the therapy and the medication or both, you can't help but agree. With all that seems to improve recently, it's sometimes difficult to think about the fact that you still have bad days, sometimes even really bad days. These are a stark reminders of the fact that this will be something you likely have to deal with the rest of your life. Depression is a battle, and though you're certainly ahead in the fight, you know the battle isn't going to be over. Sometimes even Alex can tell when things are going rough, despite the best efforts to the contrary. While you know that depression can never be cured, you have a very strong support network in your friends and even Malcolm, and armed with newfound confidence in your friends and family, you accept that... I don't know about a family. Except that though the Romeo Rocky isn't at the very least not solitary. You meet your mum's Grace from across the table and muster up a smile. I'm good, Mum, you tell her. She says nothing, but you can feel her smile from across the room. Okay, and that's where it ends. As I said previously, this isn't a game about, happy-go-lucky or a happy ending. This is a game that just, the ending is something you have to fight with. And that's the best ending. The best ending is we're doing good, but we'll have to continue to fight with our depression. And I think we've actually probably got to one of the better endings of the game. Of course, we didn't get the best job, and of course we accidentally jumped into the hole offered by our mum, trying to explain ourselves to her. But we do have the benefit of being able to play this from a third-party perspective. Real life isn't quite like that, but I've tried to comment on some of the things as we've gone along, especially some of the thought spirals that can come on there. Just understanding them is particularly helpful, especially just being able to recognize some of these spirals and, intercede. But I would just say, if anyone actually is still watching at the end of this, it was a long episode, and of course it wasn't happy-go-lucky or whatever. I very much doubt that many people actually finished all the boring talking of me playing this game. It's something that is incredibly important. Being able to talk about mental health issues, in particular things like depression, and then, of course, suicide, because it is World Suicide Prevention Day, is something that I find incredibly important, and I find that it really isn't done. And it needs to be. We talk about heart disease, we talk about cancer, we talk about everything. If we take one of my pet peeves is we spend so much money on breast cancer. Breast cancer is no longer particularly fatal. We've got very good at detecting it early and to a certain extent curing it. Most of our advances have been in prevention and detecting it early, thanks to a drive and a lot of effort. But breast cancer still by far and away gets a lot more money than anything else. And something like suicide prevention or whatever, there's no real big drive for. If I can find a link for a decent charity or two, I will throw them down below if you want to go donate there. I'll be incredibly grateful. And of course, if you yourself are suffering with any mental health issues or anything covered in this video, I would advise you to seek, professional help from either a doctor or psychiatrist, psychologist, or whoever your primary care is. And if not that, then maybe even just talk to someone like the Samaritans or another listening organization. I would like to thank you for sticking with me throughout this. I think it's actually been particularly helpful to actually do this on camera. When I was playing it earlier, I really couldn't get very far in the game. I found it was just a little bit too familiar, some of the things covered by this game. So yeah. Depression, in particular, does touch a lot of lives, and it's very hard to understand until you get very close to someone or you are the person suffering from depression how it can really affect, especially when it gets to a chronic stage. And of course, even sort of a light or moderate depression, untreated, even accidentally by relying correctly on your support groups, can spiral down into a chronic depression. It's something that maybe would be better explained by playing this game and deliberately playing for the loss. Just to show you how bad things can get, but it's not something I want to do today. I want to kind of leave you with a lot of the messages of how things can be coped with. That there are ways of coping with depression. There are ways of coping with a lot of mental health issues, and that unlike the typical prevailing view, which is, oh no, I'm too much of a man for counselling, or whatever it is, or I want to be a strong enough person in and of myself that I don't need counselling, or medicine, ugh, I don't want to mess with my body chemistry or whatever. That honestly, that is the point of view that is leading to suicide being the largest killer of under 34 men, and one of the largest killers for most people in the world. It's top 10, like I said, as far as I know. So, yeah. Apparently 1 person every 40 seconds dies from suicide. And in large part, it is preventable just by being more honest, being more open, being able to talk about it, being able to have this frank discussion about suicide, mental health, the things that lead up to it, and these problematic thought spirals, and actively pushing for it. Part of the reason that I don't find that it's particularly well catered for by government entities and so on as a mental health problem is because people have issues talking about it. People have issues lobbying for it because people really don't understand it or accept it properly, and no one talks about it. Well, we might be able to talk about cancer. I use cancer because it's the one that everyone talks about. It's the big killer when it's not actually number one, of course. Number one is heart disease. But no one really wants to talk about suicide because it's your fault. You're the one doing it. It's all in your head. And as we've said, those are all lines that, on the surface may be true, but also can be said about anything. I mean, even physical conditions, I could say it's your fault because you are your body, are your mind. Or we can say that, that tumor in your leg might be killing you, and it's your fault, it is part of you. But so is your brain chemistry. So is the depression, or so is the anxiety. And there are many more mental health issues than just mixed anxiety and depression, which is what this game tends to cover. Of course, Mixed Anxiety and Depression Quest probably wouldn't be as catchy a name. But I honestly would say that most of the things that we have covered in this game are probably things to help take away from this game and this I guess Let's Play, or just even a talking head video. I don't know what you really want to call it. Things like meow. Things like just being able to, do a bit of exercise, talk to people, and have a kitten. I know that, when I'm having a shitty day, socks really helps. Meow. Go free. So, yeah. And even if you're not suffering from depression, if you're having just a crappy day, kittens help, exercise helps, talking to people helps. I've been EnterElysium, and I really don't know how to end this video. Links to some random support, things I can find, are down below. Links to whatever charity I can dig up for suicide prevention are down below. Bear in mind that I can't cover all territories with all of these links, but I think places like Samaritans have a fairly worldwide presence. But also I would advise you to just, if you need help, and I can't provide the link below because there's just simply too many countries in the world for me to link in one description. Google is your friend, as per usual. This has been, well, you might say it's a rather depressing video, and I wouldn't say you were wrong. Both academically, strictly, emotionally, I think you're right on all of those. And if we're completely honest, maybe this is something we can talk about in the future. Maybe this is something we can actually face, and maybe we can have those statistics from people just not being able to face getting treatment going down. And above all, thank you very much for actually being a camera there, because I think that has actually kept me a little bit more sane going through this game than I otherwise would have been. I've been EnterElysium. And this has been Depression Quest. The argument is some may not say it's a game. I would say it does have a game element to it, much like Choose Your Own Adventure book. But I wouldn't say it's an amazing game. I would say it's a very good learning tool, though. I would far and away say it is honestly something that I think everyone needs to play. And I think most people who have had experience with people close to them who play this game find it very uncomfortable, because right now I am finding this very uncomfortable. I think possibly ending this video with Stay Shiny might be a bit too upbeat. So I'm going to just say goodbye. And I'm going to thank you all for watching, and, well, especially if you've got this far. We are, like 2 hours in now. So thank you. And if you at all have any problems covered in this video, do ask your primary care provider, do talk to those around you, share, talk your issues out with people, and find professional help if you can. There is nothing wrong with you for doing so.